all of those of you out there in YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and to those of you, oh, well, you know what? That's cool. I thought I need to restart the recording, but I don't. I'm just some opening words here. But anyway, all of those of you out there in video land, thanks again for joining us tonight. A lot of Missouri news this week, and we'll get into all that. A lot of weed news. Yeah. That's what this show's about. Getting high and shit, and then just talking about weed. Now, I'm not high, but we'll talk about weed tonight. All right. Without any further ado, let me start the recording, and then we shall proceed with the Liberty Talk. Actually, you know what? First, I'm going to make sure that I get in here and I format the card, so I only have one audio file on here. Even though, there we go. That's better. All right.
The Constitution isn't just a document. It's a blueprint for freedom. We're breaking down politics at every level, exposing government overreach, and going where the mainstream media surely won't. Join us in defending individual rights against the bureaucratic tide. You're listening to the Missouri Liberty Report.
All right, folks, and we are back with another super high edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. If you saw the title of this live video, we're going to talk a lot about the Missouri marijuana laws this week, just because I keep seeing articles about different stuff with taxes, licensing, background checks, all this stupid stuff that you would think. Now, I'm asking a lot here, but you would think when you have a constitutional amendment that gets passed on a ballot about recreational marijuana, that maybe you would have all your ducks in a row before, I don't know, maybe you decided to do this whole thing. No, we're not doing it that way. We like to do it and be way, way, way behind. Except for when you pay your licensure fees, you better have that money up front before you even think about opening a dispensary, a grow operation, whatever. You better have all that in order. But if you're the state, then you can balk and drag your feet and do all these other things and make people's lives miserable and then just go, well, I'm sorry, we're behind. We're just understaffed. Okay, thanks a lot for that. So we got that. I think first, before we do that one, because I brought up taxes, I've got this article here. Let me share my page. Now I got to find the right. There we go. And hey, it even knew, wow, the thing read my mind and knew exactly what I wanted to talk about first. But a Newton County assessor is refusing the Missouri Tax Commission's request on the property tax increase. And now they kind of want to take her job from her. So it says, Seneca, Missouri, the Newton County assessor says she won't abide by a request from the Missouri Tax Commission during a public meeting Monday night. That says July 14th at Seneca City Hall. Excuse me. Newton County Assessor Cheryl Perkins says she's not signing a letter of understanding asking her office to raise county property tax valuations by 13%. Perkins says Newton County residents cannot afford such a steep increase. The Missouri Tax Commission is asking county assessors across the state to increase property assessment values to become compliant. Missouri law says assessments must fall within 90 to 110% of market value. Newton County is currently at 77%. Perkins says the Missouri Tax Commission is now threatening to remove her from office. So if I don't do it, then they go to the Board of Aldermen, then they're going to withhold my money, then they're going to have the prosecuting attorney and the Attorney General remove me from office, and then they're going to, if that doesn't all work, they're threatening to hold the sales tax from the county so the county has no income coming in. Those in attendance tonight voiced strong support for Perkins. Perkins says Newton County, along with many other Missouri counties, fell out of compliance during COVID when home prices skyrocketed. Perkins says she wants Newton County to be compliant with state laws, but believes the increase should be gradual. Missouri State Senator Jill Carter and Missouri State Representative Dirk Deaton were at Monday night's meeting Senator Carter says the legislature is looking to cap the increase in property assessment values at 5% a year. So there's that humdinger of a story. And, you know, it's this is okay. So, yes, good on her for saying this is ridiculous and we shouldn't do this. Good for her. Thank you, Miss Perkins, for actually being somewhat of a civilized human being. Even though I hate that you have to have your job and assess property values, and I think no one should have that job. But good for you for taking a stand somewhere and saying, I'm not signing this letter. Because you know how many other county assessors are doing that I've heard of? I haven't heard of a single other one doing this. So good for you. Now, Senator Jill Carter, if and I'm going to state my short piece here, and Brandon, I'll let you state your piece. But Senator Jill Carter, if it and is saying, I want to cap it at 5% a year. Okay, how about we just get rid of it? And this is a conservative who wants to cap the sales or the valuation increase at 5% a year. And I'm sorry, that's not good enough. Okay? People have been feeling the pain of personal property taxes for years. And their immediate fix, because people are upset, rightly so, is to say, well, we'll cap it at 5% a year. How about you just stop increasing it? Now, Brandon, I'll let you take over for a minute. Give us your thoughts, and then I want to round off with just kind of a rant about how much this ticks me off.
Well, the wild part to me is that the range of assessed value needs to be 90 to 110%. That's, I mean, if they were assessing my value at 110%, I'd be pretty upset by that number. That seems super high. But no, like you said, good on her for standing up to those who want to raise the property value above where she thinks is necessary at the time. That's part of what her role should be, is making this kind of stand and fight. And again, I just hope I hope it opens people's idea to property taxes, because a lot of people with a lot of taxes, they just pay it. They don't put in the thought of like, oh, where is this money going? Is it all necessary? They just see a bill, they complain about it for 5 minutes, maybe they'll post something about it, and then they stop. And then they just go on with their business. So hopefully this awakens some more people to, well, getting people thinking about the theory behind property taxes. Quick shout out to you and Tom Martz on your the anniversary of the original Missouri Constitution. The little episode you guys did the other day. It was very insightful for anyone who hasn't seen it, and they delve into a little bit of property taxes in there, so definitely worth a listen to. But yeah, like I said, good on her for standing up to not letting the state government come in and force her to raise taxes above what she thinks is necessary.
Yeah, again, so many things to say on this. I believe right now there have been meetings, and state reps and stuff have been showing up. Now, Representative Darren Chappell has showed his suggestion was going to a consumption tax and getting rid of the personal property tax altogether. Voodoo Queen's got a great comment here that I want to highlight real quick. When property values crash, are we going to get a decrease? And we all know the answer to that. All of us who use our brains, that's a rhetorical question. But Voodoo raises a good point with her rhetorical question. Of course, we're not going to. Of course, they're not. Taxes will not go down if the property values crash. They're not gonna risk losing any of that income.
Maybe in like some small counties, you might see something like that. But in larger counties and in Democrat areas, once taxes go up, they are not going back down. Just doesn't happen.
No, absolutely. And here we go again. folks, we keep having this discussion on property taxes in the state of Missouri and how awful they are, right? They're terrible. They're horrific. And we are at a pace to tax people out of their homes. We are on pace to tax people out of their homes. People who maybe aren't, most of those folks on fixed incomes, but maybe some people don't make a whole lot of money and they don't have a lot of, extra cash flow to just keep covering these taxes. And here's the disappointing part. Senators like Jill Carter don't say anything about getting rid of the taxes. Oh, no, 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 no. But we'll cap it at 5%. And that's supposed to make you feel good. It doesn't matter if you cap it at 5% a year. What stops them from increasing it 5% per year? Absolutely nothing. So a cap does nothing if you're going to allow them 5% a year. You don't think they'll take that slow creep of an increase to generate more revenue? You think that's going to stop anything? No. All it does is it slows down the pace that you tax people out of their homes. It doesn't eliminate the issue. It doesn't eliminate the risk of you just ruining people's lives by taxing them out of their property that they work very hard for, and that you feel they have to rent from you every year when you pay your extortion fee to your county. And people like Jill Carter, they don't want to upset the apple cart. They don't want to tick off the fire and the ambulance and the police by saying, let's get rid of the personal property tax. Now, if Darren Chappell can write a piece of legislation that says we're gonna have this consumption tax, a use tax, let's say, and that's going to cover however many billions of dollars or whatever come in on personal property tax, that's going to cover everything. I'm okay with it. You know what I would like to do? I would like to know what kind of sales tax rate or consumption tax, use tax rate that you would have to have. Now, it might be a little high, okay? But to eliminate income tax on the people and their personal property taxes both. I would like to know what kind of consumption tax rate you would have to eliminate the individual income tax and the personal property tax. I know I'm asking for a lot here, but can you imagine if you could rid the people of those two awful things, seemingly unconstitutional things, right? You get rid of those two things and you just say, all right, every time you buy something, you'll pay a tax, you'll generate, and that generates the revenue to do this stuff for the schools and the fire and police and the roads and everything else, right? We cover that all. But for now, I'd be happy with just eliminating the personal property tax. I think it would be great if you could eliminate, really, which will never happen, but if you could eliminate the corporate and the personal property tax, if you could eliminate those three, cover it with the usage tax, think about how many more businesses would come to this state if there are no property taxes and there's no corporate income tax. How many more maybe big industry comes to Missouri because that's a heck of a lot less expenditure that they have to pay out, or an extortion fee, or whatever you want to call it, they have to pay out every year. And so maybe with all the corporations coming in, creating jobs and everything else, and more people are working, they have more money to spend. You make that loss up, and just by getting out of the way of corporations and letting them, hire more people or whatever, or bringing more jobs in, by government getting out of the way and letting the free market take over a little bit, even though I hate the thought of trying to help government, retain its freaking tax revenue, but if you could make it a lot less painful and stop making people pay an extortion fee or a rent fee every year to the government just because they've had the fortune of making enough money to buy a house and cars and whatever, UTVs and boats and whatever. If you could just, I don't know, stop basically punishing them for having the ability to do so, that would be pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah. The only thing I could think is that it might be harder to start a new business if you're competing with larger companies who can undercut you on price due to the sales tax. because I'm again, no system's perfect, and you're definitely right that taxing income is crazy in thought. Like, you're taxing people for going to work. I mean, there is not saying I agree with it, but there is a philosophical, like, you tax people for owning property because with, like, you're protecting their land. Like, you're protecting, like, under the assumption that we need taxes and that you need all of these systems in place. In theory, you have, like, you own this amount of property, and so the government is going to protect you in that amount of property, so you pay a tax proportion to that. I understand the theory behind that, but taxing income, taxing people for working, is, like, of all of the ways to tax people, that's got to be the most, like, ridiculous and harmful to the lower and middle class trying to work their way up, for sure. So definitely on board with finding ways to help lower and middle income earners pay less taxes, for sure.
Yeah, and if you didn't watch the video that Tom and I did on Saturday, that was kind of a last minute thing. He asked me about it, but then I had to wait till like Friday to figure out if I could do it or not, depending on other things that were going on. But in the original Missouri Constitution of 1820, from July 19th of 1820, it does talk about education in the state. Now, the state was going to fund schools, and they would put up to 2 per city, basically, right? It was going to be funded by, basically, if you sold land, you paid the sales tax on buying land. That went to that would go to the schools. Now, there's nothing in there about a personal property tax, so it's more of like a real estate tax or something. I know Tom Martz has also said there are a lot of people out there saying they make it sound like the framers never backed any type of tax at all on property, which apparently charters for the colonies or whatever, some of the framers who've helped pen the Constitution or charters for the original 13 colonies and on, there was a real estate tax in the state charter. So it wasn't like the framers were against taxes at all. But I believe they would have a big problem with personal property tax, which is, again, the government charging you rent. Now, you pay the tax when you buy it, then you're done. Not a recurring tax each year. I think the framers would have frowned upon that quite a bit because, I believe they would have looked at that as an extortionary type of a procedure, and I don't think they would have been real fond of that. But that does. So I don't remember the site. Tom and I pulled it up. It's something from around Springfield, Missouri or something. But yeah, you go on. Actually, you know what? Let me do a quick search, okay? So let's see. 1820. Let me see. Was it procon.org is the all right, pull up my screen here, hit my screen share again. And I will share this with you. Now, as you can see, let me pull down. There are only, what is it? I can't remember the name of articles. There were only 13 articles in the original Constitution. Then you had a schedule that down below, and then it tells you who all signed it. So there were 13 articles in the original Constitution. And that cracks me up because now look at the Constitution, how it started, and now look at it.
How many pages is that? I mean, top to bottom on the press right there, just like top to bottom on the
17 pages.
17 total pages. Now that's a Constitution you can be proud of.
I wonder,
again, not by necessarily the contents of what's inside of that Constitution, because for those who didn't listen, John and Tom had a discussion about whether Missouri was a slave state or a free state, and that teachers were calling it neutral states, and that the northern side was more free, and the southern part had more slavery. And the Constitution if I remember from what you guys were saying correctly, that Washington wanted Missouri to be a free state, but Missouri didn't want to be a free state. So they kind of had a workaround in their constitution from 1820. So when I say that that's a constitution you can be proud of, let me preface that with the size of the constitution being only 17 pages is a much better size than our current Missouri Constitution, which, if I am not mistaken, is about 300 plus pages.
Well, let me see here, folks. Let's bring it up on the screen. Maybe you'll see it. Right here, it says 260 pages.
260, 8 by 11.
260 pages is our state constitution now. So instead of having a constitution, we have a short novel.
Short.
Well, I mean, in today's standards,
That's
a lot of,
novel.
Well, okay, maybe a half-size novel.
Because I just don't read very much, so I don't read a lot of books anymore. So
let's compare it to Scott Horton's book Provoked. That's a small novel compared to Scott Horton's book Provoked.
Yeah, when you're comparing it to Provoked.
And that's not like a normal size paperback. It's a big paperback,
it's a hunky
which I still have to get a copy of and read. But anyway, that's for another show. But yeah, so it is way too many pages. But again, as Tom and I discussed, we have bingo, we have abortion, we have marijuana, we have all these other idiotic things that are in said, Voodoo Queen puts it just perfectly. A phone book. Absolutely. It's a small phone book for like a rural town.
I think at the state fair in Sedalia every year, they have strongmen try and rip it in half.
Maybe we should do that with the Constitution. See if you can rip the state Constitution in half.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, every year in Sedalia, they try. There's a big, all the juiced up guys go up there and try to rip the Missouri Constitution in half. I've heard no one's been successful in the last 50 years or so. So
maybe they should have smaller guys like me try to rip the state constitution up and be like, you can't do it. And I'm like, no, you know why? Because it's too freaking big. I should be able to rip the state constitution up easily, and I can't. So that's my point, folks. It's too damn big. But again, in order to shrink it, you would have to go back to the people, have things removed, or you would have to have a constitutional convention. And the amount of conservatives, I'm using air quotes there, that are in the state legislature right now, and to trust those people to pick people to send to a convention to write a new constitution, I have absolutely zero faith in that way either. So we either suddenly have a very educated populace that will want to roll back the size of the Constitution, or we're stuck with what we have, and we have to fight against the other stupid stuff, i.e. the personal property taxes. I really hope, I don't put a lot of faith in this because, again, there's too many air quotes, conservative legislators that are from bigger areas like towards Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield, Columbia, Jeff City, those areas. We have too many of those who are afraid to say and afraid to do the right thing, which is let's get rid of personal property tax, because they're afraid the firefighters and the police and the ambulance and the EMSs and all this are going, and schools and road workers are all going to vote against them because, because they're voting against the property tax. Yeah, here we go. Jeremiah Dean says, I didn't think they had conservatives in the state legislature anymore. I can think of a couple.
Yeah, three or four actual conservatives that want to conserve freedom.
And the two that come to mind that pop right. Anybody out there who is really, really freedom oriented, there are two people in Jeff City that should automatically come to mind right now if we talk about especially if we would say a more constitutional conservative. And those two people are, of course, Mike Moon, Senator Mike Moon, and State Representative Bryant Wolfen. And everything else is kind of, some people might say Hardwick, depending on his voting record. I'm hoping that Legiscore. Uh, boy, I'm flaking on Tom's. It's legiscore.net.
US.
.us. Thank you, Brandon. I'm hoping that we'll see the scorecards for all of the reps and senators and see what their how percentage wise how constitutionally they're voting. I'm waiting for the page to load now just to see if what comes up as far as the what's on the site now.
I remember
And
they were saying, I don't know if they did they were analyzing the bills. The last time we spoke to Tom, he said they were finishing up the House side and moving over to the Senate side on
yep.
the bills, but I don't know if they've tallied up how everyone voted on each one.
So, let's see what we have here. This are the bills, House and Senate. And
Go ahead and
so it
bring
looks
that
like
up
they've
for
got it.
me.
What? Oh yeah, sorry. I'm off in La La Land here. Let me bring up the site here. So this okay. It shows that there were 833 bills filed. Now 53. I don't know that they're done because it says there's only 53 that reached third read. 53 that third read and passed. 30 reached truly agreed. 30 truly agreed and passed. 4 emergency clauses passed. But I don't know again. But here is the House. 1,606 bills filed. 140 reached third read. 138 third read and passed. 19 truly agreed and passed. 6 emergency clauses, 5 of those passed. 158 reviewed by the Lock and Smith Foundation includes truly agreed and emergency clauses. Out of 158, there were 115 constitutional objections. So not looking real good for.
So what that means is that there were 158 different things that, like, from 2024 into 2025, that was passed, right?
No, this is just the 2025 regular session.
No,
That's
right. How many were
okay.
passed? How many bills passed?
Well, it shows that 19
Oh, okay. Never mind.
were
Then.
third
I
read
was
and
gonna
passed,
say.
but I don't know how many of those 19 made it out.
Or
To the
how many
governor.
got combined.
Right.
That's a big thing too. But even still, it seems.
Oh my
Go
God.
ahead. Sorry.
No, just look at this. This is the screen of the House bills. And all the red ones means there's constitutional objections. And it'd be interesting to know Article 1, Section 1, Article 1, Section 2, Article 3, Section 23. That's a big one that Tom always brings up. We bring up Article 1, Section 13, Section 2, Section 23 again, 23, 23, 23, 23, 23, Article 1, Section 1 and 2, 23, 23, 23. Section 1, yeah. It's the same thing over and over and over again, which is bananas. But we should not be surprised by this that what we just saw on the screen there. But every year it seems like more and more bills are filed. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, my state rep was at a local it was the Gasconade County Republican Club meeting, and I brought up the fact that that a lot of people are not fond of the Speaker of the House having all the power to decide what bills come in and out off the calendar onto the floor to be read or voted on or whatever. And he's like, "Well, it's like 1,100 bills got introduced. Now it's 1606. Now it's like a contest to see how many bills they can file." And I don't. And again, out of all of those, 115 out of 158 were unconstitutional, basically. So 43 out of 158. Let's do the math on that,
Solid.
shall we?
I was going to say, if that's correct, that's solid mental math right there.
Let's see. So I said 158, right? Is total. No. Okay. So
Yeah,
43
158.
by crap. Come on, John.
Just do 158 minus 115.
Okay. So 158 minus 115 is 43. If my math is right, I'm showing 27%. I'm doing the math in my head. Yeah, that's because 30% would be 129. So yeah, it's 27% of the bills that got third read and passed through, or third read and passed and then did all the stuff and maybe didn't make it out. But out of 158 that made it through so many steps, 27% were constitutional.
With a supermajority by the constitutionally conservative party. As Jeremiah Dean in the comments said, I don't think there are only a couple of legislatures of conservatives in the state legislature.
Yeah, and the thing is, what Tom brings up a good. I want to ask you this question, Brandon, because Tom brings up a really good point when we talk about that word, conservative. If someone walked up to you and said, Brandon, what? Because we don't really know. They don't really tell you what a conservative is. That's up for debate amongst people. But if they came to you and said, Brandon, what would you call a legislator? How would you define a conservative legislator? What would you say? What would your answer be?
Oh, I mean, by its definition, I would say it's someone who wants to protect like someone who wants to conserve the values of the Constitution. Now, I know where you're probably heading with this. And so or maybe not, but like what I would caveat to that is that the people who call themselves conservatives are not conservative. They're not. Like, they're Republican, which is fair because that's just a party you vote. Like, that's just a team. That is not a set of values or standards by any measure. You are a Republican. Whether you're a neocon or whatever, but you are, like, I mean, but most people who call themselves conservatives, politicians especially, they're not conservative. They don't want to conserve anything. There's nothing that they don't even make an effort to conserve. Like, again, I said, there's a supermajority in the House and Senate for Republicans in Missouri. And the only notable freedom that we got out of this last House legislative session was gold and silver. And that bill was passed unconstitutionally. And so, like, that's our one big win we got from the session as someone, who's strictly looking through the more freedoms versus less freedoms lens. But you even did it in the wrong way, and it was on top. It was inside of a 70-page bill. Again, it's crazy to me how many pages, not necessarily past bills, but if you add up all of the pages of all of these past bills and all the things signed by the governor, those were changes that we thought we needed to make, that these legislators thought needed to be made in the state of Missouri from last year to this year. I mean, when you add up all of the different amendments and how they merge all of these bills together and the number of times they violate Article 3, Section 21 and 23 of the state constitution, it's a lot of stuff they're putting into all of these bills. And those are changes that the conservatives thought we needed to make from last year. It's just, I mean, like you said earlier, it's bananas.
It is. And again, I just hope the one thing, if one of these folks, the ones that call themselves conservatives or whatever, if any of them were to contact me and said, John, what is the one thing you think we should work on right now? Now, I'll be honest, there'd be two things that would kind of be tied. And some people are going to think I'm a little flaky for this, but it's my opinion and I'm going to give it, right? It would be get IP reform done so you can't keep adding stuff to the Constitution. But split with that is also get rid of the freaking personal property tax. If I had two things, I mean, they're really 50-50 because if we don't make it harder to add to the Constitution, we also look at a lot of freedoms being lost. So not only can you lose your property, but you lose everything else. You can lose your freedom to choose a myriad of things and have them trample all over every other thing. But also with that thought, it makes me think, if you can't even own your property, right? All your rights pretty much dry up. That's like if you lose during COVID, if you didn't have the choice, if they didn't want to give you a choice, if they would have been able to force everyone to take a vaccine, when you lose that sovereignty of yourself, you're screwed, right? You're screwed. All other freedoms cease to exist if you don't have the personal choice of what goes in your body. Every other freedom just dries up and blows away. If you can't own your property, which technically we can't now, but if it keeps progressing where they keep taxing more and more people out of their homes and outfits like BlackRock and stuff can just come in and buy homes up willy-nilly, or some other institution can buy up all the homes and you can just rent from them, your freedoms are all dried up and blown away. What was that Kansas song, Dust in the Wind? That's going to be your liberty, dust in the wind. If we lose this battle and we don't figure out a way to get rid of personal property taxes, I feel like that right there is about the biggest threat to liberties in Missouri. If you can't do that, and if you have idiots going around and if they would pass more strict gun legislation so you also couldn't defend yourself against the tyrants, dude, you're screwed. Good luck. But we've got to get the personal property tax thing under control. So I guess if I'm going to make a choice right here, it's going to be, if they ask me and they said, man, if I can't fix one thing and you would just boot me out, and I'm like, really, one thing? There's a whole lot of things I'd boot you out for. But if there's one thing that I would get done that maybe you'd like me a little more, I'd be like, get rid of personal property tax. And then maybe for one session, I'll put up with your nonsense. And then the next session, it's a whole new ball game, brother. Now we're talking something else. But that's just kind of my thoughts on it.
Now, again, I'm not disagreeing with you, especially on the principle of it, but just devil's advocate on a counter argument just a little bit. What I don't think we need per se is a bunch of rich people who own a bunch of land getting a tax break before the middle class. And so while I'm totally with you that like the government shouldn't be able to come and take your property based on these property taxes, but that shouldn't be I think if you earn a ton of money and you have a huge piece of land, not necessarily that the huge piece of land makes, the biggest difference to me, but if you're wealthy and well off and we're cutting taxes, it needs to go to the lower middle class. It really does. And so I think that I would love cutting the property taxes for people who make under a certain amount of money. And then you do the same thing with income tax too. Like if you're the Republicans want to get rid of the income tax, but they want to start with the highest earners, which just makes no sense to me. Like if anything, what you would do is you would gradually raise the from the bottom, raise up to where you pay no taxes. So like your first 30,000's untaxed, you keep raising that until the number is zero. But to work from the top down, and then with property taxes, there are millionaires who own huge pieces of land who pay a piece of their taxes through the property tax. And they're getting I understand that it's across the board, it's the same tax breaks. But if we're keeping in like income tax for middle income workers, but we're getting rid of the property tax for super rich people in Missouri, I don't know. I think you could balance that out better if your goal is to slowly fade out taxes to as small as possible.
Yeah, again, if we're going to do this, and that's the unfortunate thing, you bring up something, and I understand where you're coming from, right? But to do it constitutionally, it would have to be for everyone equally across the board. And that's something that our lawmakers, and I'm not directing it at you, Brandon. I get where you're coming from. And I agree with you. I think if we're going to do it and we're going to be unconstitutional in our ways, then by God, the middle class and the lower class should get the first breaks, and not from the top down, from the bottom up. If we're going to do it, and if it's going to be a slow progression, bottom up. Not, not not the lobbyists getting the breaks first, right? Like, okay, so Kehoe signed a bill to get to remove some tax for beer makers. And, people are like, yay. And I'm like, okay, great. Here's the thing, right? If anybody gets to pay less taxes, that's awesome, right? It's awesome when someone finds a way to pay less taxes, because that's like winning, right? But again, then it's also unconstitutional. If you're gonna say only these people in the beer industry are going to get elimination of, now if it's a tax that only affects beer makers, then it's constitutional, right? Because the beer makers only pay that tax, and you're eliminating that, so that's constitutional. But again, why is that the legislature's first thought is to go, we got to get rid of this beer tax for Anheuser-Busch? Your first thought should be, how do we get rid of extorting people because they own property, right? Instead of saying, okay, we have a billionaire company or a beer company that probably has billions of dollars in revenue. I'm sure they pay a pretty significant tax as well. But if your first thought is, we got to get rid of their beer tax, before you look at your constituency across the state, the citizens who's the power is supposed to be vested in, why you wouldn't work to ease their tax burden first is beyond me. Again, this is how Republicans get that the Democrats go, Republicans only care about the rich. So if I am an independent and I don't know much about politics, and I have a Democrat whispering in my ear, yeah, Republicans only care about the rich. And then I see a bill like that, and I see squabbling just trying to get property taxes under control, I am going to start to believe the Democrat, right? Because it seems to me that with all the lobbyist money running around in the state of Missouri, the corporations and stuff are going to get first dibs at the tax breaks or whatever, and then everybody else small business owners or just employees who work for someone else don't see a thing. So if Republicans want to get rid of that that moniker, or that thing that's placed on them by all the Democrats, then maybe you show them. Maybe you go, okay, we're going to cut property taxes for everybody. Everybody's getting a property tax cut, or we're eliminating them altogether. And then you do stuff like that. No Democrat in the right mind, which most of them aren't in their right mind, but no Democrat with more than two brain cells to rub together can look at you and say, yeah, see, Republicans only care about rich people. Like, wait a minute. They just eliminated everybody's personal property tax. Everybody, poor people, middle class and upper class, all got rid of their personal property taxes. How is that only for the rich? So that's Republicans, when they complain about that, like we have Republicans in the state, I can't believe they say we only care about the rich people. Well, big ag, you get tax breaks and stuff and tax credits all the time. I'm sure with Kehoe, the car dealerships are going to get some sugar coming their way. The beer makers and stuff, the big businesses are getting the breaks, and the people who work for those places aren't getting anything. So if you want to get rid of that nasty little, cloud that's over you that says you only care about the rich, then get on it and show them that you are the people you say you are. Show them that you're actually a conservative and that you prescribe to what the Republican platform used to be. I'm not sure it's this way anymore, of limited government and protecting the Constitution and all those things. Get back to the old Republican way, or the classical liberal way, and not the new conservative or the new Republican, which says, if you're not a lobbyist, we don't care about you. Just my thought.
Yeah. Again, I'm not I'm not saying that like it's like again, the whole point is that the current system we're under, we're paying all of these different variations of taxes. And when you have a system like, because again, I'm with the idea of eliminating property taxes across the board, but most importantly, the big concern is people be having their taxes raised and then they have to sell their home or they're being forced out of their home. And I'm saying if we're going to eliminate these taxes, you start with the people who earn the least amount of money and work your way up. I'm an agorist, monarchist at heart. I mean, one of the biggest problems too, I don't want to miss this point, is that the federal government takes up so much money. Like the federal government takes so much in taxes that it makes this extra burden of raising your property taxes feel so much worse because you're already paying stacks and stacks of taxes. Even if you're on a fixed income, I know very recently in this BBB, they may have changed it, but you were paying taxes on your fixed income from Social Security on you were paying income tax on that already also. And so, yeah, I agree that it's not constitutional to give certain people tax breaks, but that's the system we're in. And our big concern, I mean, I'm very pro Constitution and think things need to be done by the Constitution. But if we're talking about making the changes in the system we have, I just think it needs to favor the middle class and the people who are struggling first was my main point. And like back when I was talking about how the Republicans were trying to they were going to get rid of the income tax by starting at the top. And that's also not affecting everyone equally, but starting at the bottom and raising it, like one of them is affecting the lower income earners and one's affecting the high income earners. Well, actually raising the income threshold kind of helps both in a way, but it focuses on the low and middle class income earners, which my only point was that I think if you're cutting taxes in the system we have, that you start with lower and middle class earners.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. If you start from the bottom up, and the people
Right.
that get hit the hardest are the first to get the relief, and then it goes up. Catherine has an interesting comment that I don't necessarily disagree with. Says we need to stop engaging in their conversations about eliminating taxes and turn the conversation into cutting spending. I don't disagree.
100%.
I don't disagree. But and I'm saying I'm not saying this to be a smart aleck. I'm asking a question. What is more feasible? What would get done faster? What thing would be more likely to happen first? Them cutting their spending or getting rid of personal property tax? And I'm not saying that to be a smart aleck. I'm asking honestly, what do you see happening first? Cutting the spending or eliminating like something like the personal property tax? I get it. We don't want to be in a deficit. We don't want deficit spending like the federal government. And there are people out there who'd say that Missouri's budget is not actually balanced. And I don't disagree with that either. But if we're looking at what one thing is more likely to get done first, the spending cuts or eliminating personal property tax, what do you think?
Oh, it for sure would be eliminating property tax. The government doesn't want to have to go and explain how they have to, like they're making cuts. No politician ever gets away with telling the voters that they're making cuts. It would definitely be get rid of taxes, borrow the money, and then let the chips fall where they may. That, like you said, that's where our federal government is right now because the American people cannot stomach to hear that we need to make cuts. Even conservatives, Republicans, they can't go back home and say, hey, we need to make cuts to the major social programs in the country. Your polling numbers sink. No one agrees with that. So yeah, I think totally it would be cutting property taxes before they ever make spending cuts. They just refuse to do it.
I don't disagree with you either, but I mean, if I'm some squishy Republican in DC and I want to make, even though it would never happen, the thing I think I would tell my constituents is say the first thing I want to cut is the handouts to every other country around the world. We're eliminating doling out billions of dollars to Ukraine, Israel, and every other freaking country that we meddle in and give them money at the same time, and then we make them angry and they do stuff, and then we're like, oh, we have to go in there and uh, um, we have to eliminate the bad guy. But I think again, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. After seeing what we've been seeing the last few weeks, they're not going to cut spending and giving out money to other nations. Catherine's, and this is right. She's not wrong. They'll get reelected if they eliminate the Personal Property Tax, and that's the way they'd look at it. Like, this is a huge win. This is gonna keep my seat until I term out here in Missouri. If they eliminate the personal property tax, that's like a lot of Republicans are going to keep winning reelection, because every time election comes up, all they have to do is go, hey, I'm the guy that got rid of your personal property tax, remember? Even though they might increase spending every year and have to figure out a new way to tax you somewhere else, they're going to get to say to their constituents, I eliminated the personal property tax. And so, and then everybody's going to be like, woo. And until they term out, or if they're in a House and they go to the Senate or whatever they do, when they're all done with their elected position, it's a win-win for them. That's the thing, Brandon. This is the problem, right? This is the problem. You want to eliminate taxes. You want to see that your money's not being stolen by the government, state, local, federal, whatever. You're tired, if you're smart and if you have a working brain, you're tired of them stealing your hard-earned money every week and at the end of every year. You're tired of it. But Catherine does have a point. If they don't stop spending the money and they don't cut their spending, it's like we get to live more comfortably for a while because we're keeping more of our money. But if the state turns into the federal government and inflation goes through the roof, like at some point it's like you lost your personal property tax because they've devalued the currency so bad that you just it's like they figure out a way to go, look, we're helping you. And then at the backside, they're like stabbing you in the back. They're like, look, we got rid of the personal property tax. And then you hear the shing of the sword coming out of the sheath. You're like, wait a minute. That doesn't sound like helping. Like, well, we have to cut a hand off. We're not going to give it. We're not just going to not tax you on something. We're going to get our pound of flesh, but at least you don't have that bill in December, right? Like, yeah, I also can't work because I only got one hand. Like, don't worry, there's a handout for that, and we'll tax you on it later. Don't you worry, good sir. I don't know. It's a mess. I don't know if there's really ever going to be a good answer to solve this that people can actually get on board with and understand that there's going to be a little pain in the beginning, but the future is going to be much better. How do you sell that to them?
Well, yeah, when Catherine says they'll get reelected if they eliminate the personal property tax, again, I don't know. Anytime you want to make cuts, the initial attack on that would be that you don't care about schools or excuse me, that you don't care about schools or hospitals or policemen or firemen. Like, that would be the selling pitch, and trying to convince the majority of the people in your district, because it would, again, eliminating the personal property tax is, I've never even heard a congressman ever mention it. I mean, maybe they have. I've never seen a bill introduced to do it by anyone. Again, I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I'm just saying I've never seen it. Now, I've seen go ahead.
Just real quick, Senator Eigel, when he was in office, every session he would introduce a bill, and the way he was doing it was every time he'd introduce it, he was like, we'll cut it every year at the rate of inflation. Now, when he first started introducing it, it would take like 5 to 6 years before the personal property tax went away. But when inflation got high in the COVID era, it would have been 2 and it would have been gone. So I just wanted, because you didn't know, I want to throw that in. Yeah. You can continue on.
But what's funny is from what I've seen, he seems to have pivoted to doing the income tax instead. Because when he was running for governor, I only saw him ever mention the income tax. I never saw an ad about eliminating personal property tax. And aside from Eigel, personally, I've never seen anybody campaign on it. And if it was,
they don't generally do it, no.
Right. So I think if it was a winner, that they would do it. I mean, but I don't know. I don't think you can. I'm not disagreeing that it wouldn't be, like you said, there might be a couple speed bumps at first, and they'd just shift the money around. They'd figure out a way to fund all these things. They wouldn't just let them go unfunded. But I think the initial, like, trying to convince people to get over that initial hump without trying to make it sound like you hate every single institution of local society, then I don't think you'd be able to make that sell.
I will say, I think if I'm trying to, let's say you or I were going to run for state rep, right? And this, like, people are like, what are you going to run on? Like, I want to eliminate the personal property tax. And they're like, I'd be like, listen, I mean, you would literally have to run the numbers, have them set in stone, and go. And the other thing, you got to get I don't know how you get people to understand it, right? It is a pain in the neck. There are 29 states that don't have a personal property tax and still have all those things. You don't go down to Texas where they have no personal property tax and go, where's all the schools? They're like, no personal property tax, so everybody homeschools. No, there's still freaking schools and roads and bridges and fire and police and ambulance. They're all there. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand real estate taxes in Texas are a little high, but actually they're pretty dang high. But they don't have a personal property tax. They still have all those things. And that's the thing, people, it's like, I think people are under they think that every state has personal property taxes. Illinois doesn't have personal property taxes. The commune next door, 2 hours away across the river, does not have personal property taxes. I think if more people heard that and they'd be like, what? Like, yes, our communist neighbors to the east don't have personal property taxes. And they have all their things. Hello? And I just don't think that gets said enough. It's just, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And, oh my God, all the children will die because the roofs are falling in on the schools because we have no money. And all the teachers are, 90 years old with dementia, and they can't even teach the kids anymore because you can't afford to pay them, and blah, 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 blah. Kevin Spacey said and everything is bigger there too in Texas. It's true. That's what they say. Everything's bigger in Texas. But getting people, you're not wrong, Brandon. Getting people to grasp that, hey, this is better for you to not pay a rental fee to the government. And right before Christmas time comes around, you get a big fat bill in the mail from, your county assessor. And listen, by the way, there's 29 states that don't have a personal property tax that still have all the services. Like, don't let these people lie to you. Another interesting thing that people were telling me, Gary Ridenour was telling me, he went to testify about a bill when Senator Eigel was still in office. He went to testify about the personal property tax bill that he had submitted. And what was funny is there's people from St. Louis, fire department, police, in their dress blues saying, you can't do this. And Gary's thought was, are you getting paid by taxpayer money right now to be here? Are you getting paid to be here right now? Because if that's the case, you're stealing money from the citizens of St. Louis County or St. Louis City. You're literally spending taxpayer dollars to be here to testify for a bill. Not part of your job title at all. But yeah, they were all showing up in their finest dress blues, telling the whoever on Senate side, I guess, in committee, that you can't do this because we'll all be out of a job. It's so ridiculous, but it worked.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You'll have every fireman, policeman, because they won't be able to grasp, like you said, Illinois probably, I'm guessing here, because they don't have a personal property tax, they probably have a super high state income tax or extremely high sales taxes. I know their taxes on like tobacco and alcohol are high because when I used to work a little closer to downtown, a lot of the people who lived in Illinois would come across the river to get cigarettes and beer, whatever they needed, or they'd get it on their way home from work.
Yep.
Catherine says they get paid to stand at polling precincts every time they have an increase on the local ballot. Yeah, yeah. And again, it's one of those things where like every time they put an increase like that on the ballot, they frame it as you either support this or you hate the thing that's getting the extra money. And it drives, I talk about it on the show all the time because it drives me so crazy. It's like, man, if I went to like if I tried to explain to people that I think our military spends too much money and we need to spend less money on our military, there are veterans from every walk of life that would come out of the woodworks to yell, "Hey, he doesn't want a strong military. He must be from China." You do. I mean, I have these conversations at work where I'm like, yeah, I think we spend too much money. And the immediate response is, no, we don't spend enough money. Like China's already invaded our country. They own all of our farmland. They've built around all of our military bases. They sent weather balloons across our country. I mean, so it's everything. It's Catherine's 100% right. They just they plant these people out to get more money for their cause, and it has nothing to do. They never try to justify it with like, this is why we need this increase. Like they never. It's always, do you support police? Well, then support their pay increase or support their this increase. It's never has anything to do with like, this is how much crime we fight versus other cities and how much they get paid. It's never like, this is what we want to do with the money because these cities did this and they've seen improvements with this and that. Like they have higher retention rates when they have a nicer facility for these paramedics or nothing. Like no justification for any of it. They just say, we're going to spend more money. And if you don't like it, you hate all of it. Ridiculous.
Yeah, you want us to die. You want old people to die. You want kids to die. You don't want kids to have an education. You don't want nice roads and bridges. You don't want the ambulance to show up on time. So if you're having a heart attack, you don't die because you're waiting on all these things. Yes. It's just like when people debate, right? And somebody's like got the facts lined up and the other person just wants to name call. And if you're really listening, you're listening closely, again, you'd sit there and go, well, that guy's laying out facts, and that guy's just saying, I hate people that I don't hate. Maybe I should weigh that out. How am I going to make my decision? The guy that's has all the facts lined out or the guy that's resorting to name calling because he doesn't have a leg to stand on? Too many times people listen to the guy that doesn't have a leg to stand on. Again, Harry Brown said it best. The government will break your leg, hand you a crutch, and say, see, if it wasn't for government, you wouldn't be able to walk. That is their game. They will kneecap you and then hand you a crutch and go, see, if I wasn't here, you'd be crawling on the ground, getting your knees all scraped up and bloody, and then maybe an infection and die in a hospital because we're not there to protect you at the hospital either. So they'll say all kinds of stuff. And at some point, I mean, this drives me absolutely bat you know what crazy. How many freaking examples do you have to show people and to get them to understand that you cannot trust these people at all? Like you literally cannot. Like if you go to Washington, D.C. right now, there's one, perhaps two people that you can be like, I'd sit and have a conversation with them. And the rest of them, you're like, I don't even want them to touch me because I'm afraid whatever they have will rub off on me and I will also be white and weird. So Massey and Rand Paul. And Massey all the time, Rand Paul sometimes. The rest of them, no, I don't want their cooties. Don't touch me. I don't want you shaking my hand. I don't want you patting me on the back. I've told this story before. When Obama was running in 2008, he actually came to Union, Missouri. And myself and two of my coworkers went there after work. And we all had like no Obama signs, right? We were holding them up. Well, then Obama's bus pulls up and everybody's like losing their mind. Hey, Bob, the savior's here. So my friend, my coworker Chris and I were standing right in the front of all these other people because we got there plenty early. And Obama is walking up the line, shaking people's hands. Now, my buddy puts his sign down as Obama gets right in front of him. And Obama looks at him, at Chris, and goes, hey, you didn't have to put your sign down. And he goes, I know, but I wanted these people behind me to be able to reach out and shake your hand. And he patted him on the shoulder and he's like, thanks a lot. And he moved on down the line. The next day I go to work and I walk by him. I go, God, what is that odor? He's like, what? What do you smell? I was like, you don't smell that on your clothes, on your arm? And he's like, smell what? I go, the communist stench. Like Obama touched you. I was like, there's no amount of baths that are going to wash that stench away. And I can't say what he said on the radio. But anyway, I gave him so much flack for that. Like
Was
once a month,
that
I'd walk by and go, you still smell like Obama. Like, God, dude, do something.
what's
Yeah, that's my,
was that 2008 or 2012? Did you say
that was '08 because,
that was the first go around?
yeah, I got laid off not too long after that because, not too long after that, the economy took a dump.
Yeah.
So when the economy, when the housing market dumped and the place I worked at started laying off, then yeah, I was one of the first to get laid off. And I will say this because I know it's true, is because I got injured there and had to have surgery on my shoulder. So as a parting gift to me, they said, toodaloo, and out the door I went. Because it's funny. Somebody's like, are you going to file a workman's comp claim on them? I go, no, if they leave me alone, blah, 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 blah. But coworker Chris, communist Chris was his nickname for a while because he smelled like Obama. Anyway, he told me that he was sitting in one of the boss's offices and he said, yeah, right now we're getting rid of the people that we don't like. So then I went down and got filed a workman's comp claim, and probably a really douchey move on my part. But back then I was like, I got 2 little kids, and I got injured there. And as a parting gift for me, you just got rid of me because you somehow thought I did it on purpose. Like, dude, that's like the only injury I'd ever really turned in. Besides one time I fell off a platform and thought I banged up my knee pretty bad, and I didn't. I just twisted a little bit, and a few weeks later was fine. I'd never had anything else besides that, and they just thought I was going to every plant I worked at and trying to hurt myself to get money. And the thing is, the previous one had been like 7 years before that, and I'd had other jobs between there, so I don't know why they thought I was doing it at every business I worked at. But that's beside the point. Yeah, it was just a funny story, and yeah, my friend, I don't know. I need to message him someday and say, did you ever wash the Obama stink off of you? Because if we ever go to hang out, I better not smell that. It's been a long time since that guy's been in office.
Yeah, that was
So
16, 17 years ago. That'd be a long stench. It'd be a long. He probably would struggle finding a girlfriend or wife with a stench.
and he's
like
married
that.
with 2 kids, so
Oh,
I get there. Well, the thing is, you know how you smell something long enough, you don't smell it anymore.
maybe
That's
they're just
probably
used
it.
to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, they've been
Communist.
desensitized to the Obama odor. All right, let's get into some other stuff here. We got some Missouri marijuana articles that I want to get into. Now, I cannot re-find the article. I had it. I thought I saved it. Apparently, I didn't. There's a town in Missouri somewhere that wants to add a 1% sales tax to recreational marijuana at their dispensaries to help pay for like a city rec center. And that establishment is actively fighting that and saying, no, you can't add another 1% sales tax on the stuff that we sell to pay for something for the community. That's not how this works. I cannot find the article. If I ever find it, I'll discuss it. Let me pull up this one because this is just government in a nutshell, right? Because in order to work at a dispensary, you're supposed to go through a criminal background check, and you're supposed to get fingerprinted to make sure that you're not a prior felon. I don't know why that makes a difference working at a freaking dispensary, but whatever. I guess they think you're going to steal all the weed and then sell it later. Missouri cannabis regulators say they're halfway through getting fingerprint background checks for about 16,000 marijuana workers and volunteers who didn't get them between 2022 and 2024. Anyone who wants to work in a cannabis industry must get an agent ID badge through the Missouri Division of Cannabis Regulation, which is when the background check normally occurs. Since the division began doing the retroactive fingerprint checks in February, the number of agent IDs has declined by 2,400, going from 21,132 in February to 18,737 in June, according to the division's data and reports webpage. Lisa Cox, spokeswoman for the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, says only 17 people have had their agent IDs revoked because the fingerprinting process showed a disqualifying felony offense on their criminal record as of July 15. The vast majority, or 2032 active agent IDs, have been revoked due to non-submission of fingerprints. Those who have been revoked for non-submission of fingerprints may reapply and should contact DCR directly for assistance with this request. When the state legalized medical marijuana in 2018, fingerprint background checks had been a requirement to apply for an agent ID card to work in the cannabis industry. The mandate lasted until December 2022, when the recreational marijuana constitutional amendment went into effect and only required owners of companies to get fingerprinted. Other employees had to attest to not committing disqualifying offenses. But in 2023, Missouri lawmakers passed a bill to once again require all employees, contractors, owners, and volunteers to submit their fingerprints to the Missouri Highway Patrol for a criminal background check. However, it took until October 2024 for the FBI to approve the division's statutory authority to review state and federal criminal background records. Since February, the division has been sending emails to individuals with agent ID cards approved between 2022 and 2024. Our request process is based on the date that the ID card was approved, said Shayna Arndt, the division's section director of patient and application services. Good Lord, say that 3 times fast. During the July DCR Out Loud podcast. Are you freaking kidding me? We have sent out a message to the impacted agents and designated contacts for all facilities for the summer. The Constitution states that people with a disqualifying felony can't work in the industry, and that's broadly defined as any violation of a state or federal law designated a felony under Missouri law, according to the division. A lot of their review is subjective. What is written into law is then applied to each individual record, so it is a case-by-case analysis and can't simply be determined by a checklist of potential offenses. In the Constitution, there is an exception for marijuana offenses eligible for expungement and a timeline for other offenses. An applicant can obtain an agent ID if they committed a nonviolent offense more than 5 years ago and served no prison time. For other felonies, more than 5 years have passed since the person was released from parole or probation, and he or she has not been convicted of any subsequent felony criminal offenses. Every state handles background checks differently because the federal government doesn't regulate the marijuana industry in any way, as it's federally illegal. So, that's just one lovely part of Missouri's marijuana mess. I don't know how else to put it. Just a marijuana mess when it comes to these bills. And when it comes to the medical and the recreational marijuana industry in general, it's just a joke. Why you have to go through this rigmarole of you're selling weed. Okay, now that is legal now. Recreational marijuana is legal now in the state of Missouri. So why on earth does it matter if you've had a felony before? Because you are now working in a system where it's legal to buy the stuff. Again, unless you're worried about somebody like just beating the crap out of their coworkers and stealing a bunch of weed, well, let's just face it. Anybody might do that, you know? A guy's having a bad day, instead of going postal, I don't know how you'd put it. He went pot, I don't know. But he goes postal in the dispensary and starts just stealing stuff. I don't know what a felony offense. Not having a felony offense is going to make you less likely to steal from your employer, because there's a whole lot of people out there who never had a felony record and then decided to steal from their employer and then they got a felony record. So, I mean, I don't know. This whole licensure thing drives me absolutely nuts.
Oh, it definitely seems like a money play. It seems like something the people within that division would push for to make to give themselves more power and make themselves bigger, because it was originally just the owners. And that's a pretty small amount of people, and a pretty, like, one owner could own several different dispensaries. So you're talking about a very small team, a very limited number of licenses, and just let's say you have to pay X amount of dollars to the state to go get this fingerprint done. Now you're talking about every single bud tender, facilitator, manager, and owner of all of these stores now have to go get these H and ID bags. They all have to check in. And so now you're going to have to, well, now we need to hire more people. And so, and like you said, the dumbest part of the whole thing to me is how it's not even a, like, drug related felony offenses. Like, it's not even like if you were convicted of selling opioids or selling federally banned substances or whatever. No, it's just vague. If you've committed a felony that the state of Missouri recognizes as a felony, then they can revoke you. It just, I mean, it seemed, and like you said, what the state has deemed you to be, to have paid your debt to society. So, like, unless you're flagging people with active warrants, then you've basically stated that they've paid their debt to society, and the business is willing to hire them, because felons have a hard time, even after they've paid their debt to society, they have a hard time finding gainful employment. And so you have a business willing to hire them, the felon willing to go to work, which is a great thing for an ex-con to do, is to find something meaningful for their life, like work. And so, and then you have the government then stepping in and deciding that that business and that person can't have a private transaction. Because if someone comes in and robs the place, it's not like they've robbed the state of Missouri. They robbed the business, and the business is then out the product or the money or whatever it was that was stolen. And so it's just such a crazy overreach that people don't even realize. It's the government coming in and stopping a perfectly legal contract between two people.
Yeah, again, this is why I hate licensure so much. And then, the best part is you got, let's say 18,000 people are left, and so 18,000 people that generally whose fingerprints are not on record with any law enforcement agency now have their fingerprints on record with the state patrol. You have to give your fingerprints to the government. They're going to take your fingerprints, put them on file on a law enforcement agency. Now, I'm not saying that anything nefarious has happened with that in the state of Missouri, but I'm also saying it's not a good idea to just have to give your fingerprints to a Missouri law enforcement agency to get a job. I know years ago when I had a place that had a propane tank, and one of the guys that helped set up the whole thing says, "Hey, would you like to work? You come work for us and drive a propane truck?" And I was like, "Huh?" And he said, "Yeah, but you have to go down to the state highway patrol and submit fingerprints for a check." And I go, "Why?" He's like, "Well, terrorists and stuff, they might steal a propane truck and use it to blow something up." And I looked at him and go, "I am not going to the state patrol and giving them and submitting my fingerprints so I can drive a propane truck." I said, "I'm sorry, I don't trust them that much." And he just kind of looked at me like, "The hell's wrong with you?" I'm like, "I don't know, dude. I'm not a terrorist. Do I look like an angry Middle Easterner who's sick of the government of the U.S. military sticking its nose where it doesn't belong, so I'm going to go blow up a building?" I don't think I look like one of those people. But yeah, I just like, no, I'm good. I'll just keep the job I have. I don't want to go submit my fingerprints because you want me to drive a propane truck for you. If you can find a little end around, cool. Yeah. And Voodoo Queen, you're right. we knew that these things would happen when the original bill passed. Yeah, when that constitutional amendment passed, there were I was actively just fighting this with every ounce of my being, telling anyone I could, do not vote yes for Amendment 3. Do not. It's horrible. And there's like little vape stores and stuff that would sell like I think they might have a little bit of Delta 8 products. And I was like, listen, you tell every customer to vote no. And they kind of looked at me and I said, you got to understand, this passes. And thanks to Ethan Thampy, who kind of led me to this, and he was absolutely right. This passed, they're going to come after Delta 8 products, Delta 10 products. Give it time, they'll do it. Epen was dead on. And some of the other people who objected to this amendment were dead on. They nailed it right on the head. So I know a lot of people that listen to the show were doing everything they could to tell people don't. But again, because we don't have IP reform in the state, 16 counties passed this. Because of 16 counties out of however many, 80 something, 100 something, I don't remember how many counties Missouri has. But only 16 passed Amendment 3 on the ballot because 50 plus 1%. So, and then they had organizations paying people to get the amendment on the ballot. They were just paying people willy-nilly to go out and just get signatures. So the big establishment types knew exactly, like, if this passes, like we're gonna come in, we know we're gonna get our licenses and all these things. So, and they had people out there getting signatures, and they had no idea what was all wrapped up in Amendment 3. But it got on the ballot. They went to work, got people in droves to vote, and 16 counties out of all the counties in Missouri passed, because of the numbers, passed that amendment to the Constitution. And now we're all stuck with it. Whether we go to a dispensary and buy weed or not. Anybody that you know is stuck with this nonsense, and the amount of taxes that they want to put on it, and their county, the city, the state all wants to lump taxes in it. Now, apparently the Missouri Supreme Court opined that you cannot do that. You can't, because I don't remember what the state's is. 9%? 6? You couldn't have the city and the county lumping their 3% on. You'd have one or the other, but they both couldn't do it. You couldn't stack the taxes. So the Missouri Supreme Court opined that. O'Fallon, there was just one. Florissant, they just had an opinion handed down on just a few days ago that said Florissant could add their tax, but St. Louis County could not. So there's no tax stacking. But when this first passed, just about every county and every city in the state of Missouri was like on it. Shady J in the house. Shady J, if I don't remember seeing you post in a live chat before, I apologize, but it's good to see you in the live chat here on YouTube, and appreciate you joining in. But yeah, this whole thing is just a huge huge debacle, and the people that voted yes for this, it's just like all the other bad legislation and stuff that passes here in the state or federally. You get what you vote for, and now you're getting what you voted for. And other people who may decide down the road that they want to use recreational marijuana are also going to get hit with all the taxes and the stupidity and the licensure that you decided you needed weed recreational bad. So you needed it to pass so badly here in the state that you would just give up everything to have it.
It's mostly ignorance. I guarantee you that most of the people voting yes on that had no idea the sort of tax structure that they would bring to it, the regulations that it would bring to it, the clamping down, like you said, on Delta 8 and Delta 10. I just don't think a lot of people knew about it. And I know you were spreading the word, but sadly enough, they were probably paying more people to spread the word the other way than there were people out there spreading the word against all the different taxes and regulation. But it's the same thing like when they legalized gambling here not very long ago. that's the part of the selling point is the taxes. Like they tell you they're going to tax it, and that's part of the selling point on it, which is just so ridiculous. I mean, I bring this up every time it comes up about the taxes on marijuana. I just bring up, like, what if we just decided we were going to tax coffee, or we were going to tax breakfast foods, or we were going to tax tacos just because that, like, oh, trans fat's bad for you, we're going to tax Oreos. It's like, that's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It's just, you're doing it just because. It's not like you had a need for money. Again, it wasn't like the government came to us and they said, we need money for these things, so we're going to legalize this to pay for it. It was the opposite. So we're going to legalize this. Okay, well, then we're going to take a bunch of money right off the top. Not that we need it, but just because we want to. And it's just the state of the government.
And it's always for education. Always. It's always, oh, we're going to help. It's now, well, now there's two things. Now it's education, the schools, and vets. That's the two heartstrings that they just tug on willy-nilly. We're going to help the vets, and we're going to help education. So you get it with, and this, I know this sounds maybe a little, I don't know, like I'm being discriminatory or whatever. But generally, you want to get Republican voters, you talk about vets. You want to get the liberal voters, you talk about schools. If you want to fund the schools more. Now now they just cater to both. You're going to get education and the vets. So you get the liberals and the Republicans. You get them both on board because you got two different heartstrings you can tug on, and you can bring those people together to agree to vote something under the, put an amendment in the Constitution or vote something into law, because here we go. We're going to give more money to education while our test scores and our literacy rates and everything else continue to swirl down the toilet bowl. Yes, more money definitely this time, because last time that wasn't just quite enough money. Next time we tax, it'll be enough money so the kids come out here better educated. Yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, Booty Queen says same as for tobacco and alcohol.
Oh, I mean, they just raise the tobacco rate for no reason. They won't outlaw it. They won't ban it because it's bad for you. They just will raise the taxes to an insane level, but without saying that they need more money. Like, they don't say we need more money. They just raise the tax rates on cigarettes because the other states did. Peer pressure, I guess, on a state level.
Yeah, but I thought we were against peer pressure. I thought that was one of the things they taught us as a kid. Don't bow to peer pressure. And yet the states are doing it. Absolutely right.
It's almost like the first kid to jump in the pool. She's like, oh, that looks like fun. It's not that they're peer pressured into it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to go jump in the pool because everyone else is. It's something that benefited them in the long run. So, of course, they're like, oh, yeah, peer pressure. But they wanted to do it the whole time. They were just waiting they were looking around waiting for someone else to jump in first.
I remember years ago, it might have been on my Push for Liberty podcast. I don't remember. I remember seeing an art, and it might have been my very first show. Hard to say. My mind isn't as sharp as it once was. But I do remember reading an article about how the American Cancer Society was going to every state and saying you should raise the tax on a pack of cigarettes $1 a pack. And they're like, well, and they're like, really? Well, like more tax revenue? Say no more. But they literally said this will be more tax revenue for the state. And also, if you make cigarettes more expensive, then people are less likely to smoke them. But the American Cancer Society, I thought this was an organization that was trying to get rid of cancer, also telling states how to generate more revenue. So, yes, they went to all the states and said, you should raise the tax $1 a pack.
I don't think the American Cancer Society is actually interested in getting rid of cigarettes then. I think they just want to make cigarettes classier and cooler by making sure lower class people can't have them. You have to be middle class or upper class, and they're trying to make smoking cool again. That's my guess. because just raising taxes is not going to stop people. It's just going to make people with less money have even less money when they want to buy cigarettes. I don't know if those people clearly aren't heavy smokers or have never been addicted to nicotine before, but you don't just pick it up. You don't just quit it because they raised it $1. You just go without other things.
Yeah, and or if you're like me, well, I didn't really do it because of the cost. I did it because I had one daughter who was a couple years old, and she was waking up in the morning with like blood dried in her nostrils from her sinuses being screwed up. So, uh, like literally 2 or 3 days before my son was born, I went from smoking to chewing, and then a week later, my daughter's nose cleared up and was no longer having issues. So I did it so my kids weren't breathing it in. And let me tell you something. I screwed up. Now, I'm not saying I should have continued smoking. That's not what I'm saying. Excuse me. What I'm saying is, I found out years later because, I'm dumb. I'm still dumb, but I was dumber back then. I didn't research it. I picked the harder of the two nicotine habits to quit. Apparently, now I now use, and this is not, by the way, this is not a paid endorsement, and hopefully this doesn't make YouTube mad, but I went to these nicotine pouches, right? I went to these instead of chewing like long cut tobacco. But sometimes my wife will say, I really think you ought to quit the nicotine. And I go, listen, I don't drink. I don't really have many vices. I have two vices: sweet tea and nicotine pouches. And please don't take those away from me. Like, I have given up eating a lot of food that I used to eat. Um, and it's really weird because I have a job where I walk way more and I'm putting on weight. So make that make sense. But I don't, I went to, is nicotine salt in the pouch is what it is. There's not even tobacco in these pouches. I went to that. But yes, my wife is like, you ever going to quit nicotine? No, probably not. Because these are one of the few vices that I have. And I told her, I said, I'll quit. You have to get everybody out of this house for like 2 weeks. Everybody has to leave. No, seriously. Okay, so short story. Years ago, I was chewing long cut tobacco, and out of the blue one day, I decided that I am going to quit chewing. Just cold turkey, just quit. So, like the night before, I didn't put it, I started like 9 o'clock that prior night. No tobacco. Woke up, no tobacco. My wife's grandparents' TV had went on the blink, so they all her aunts and uncles got together and bought them a new flat screen TV because they still had a CRT type. So and my wife's like, I'm gonna go out there because we're gonna give them to him today and blah 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 and hook all their stuff up. Okay, cool. I was going to go out and buy her Mother's Day present with the kids. So I'm out shopping with the kids and I get a phone call. Can you go to Walmart real quick? Why? Well, because they said they need an HDMI cable for this new TV. And I said, well, that's all fine and dandy, but they still have the old satellite receiver that does not have an HDMI output guaranteed. It only has coax. They need to use the coax. She says, I know that and you know that, but go ahead and buy it, bring it out here. They'll pay you back. Fine. So I go to Walmart. I grab an HDMI cable. I drive it all the way out there, hand it to them. They tear open the box. They're on the floor. They're looking, and they go, there's no HDMI output on this box. I looked at my wife and said, I'm leaving now. And I got back in the car with the kids, and I drove back to town, and we went back and got her Mother's Day presents, and I went home. And I told her, I was like, listen, you knew I was trying to quit chewing today. I said, then your family, your uncle, one of your uncles, who's always right, says, I need an HDMI cable. And I knew better because I used to be the tech guy for her grandparents. If something techie went wrong, John fixed it. And they're not going to listen to me on the day I'm trying to quit tobacco. Oh, dude, I made it the rest of that day. And then the next day I got up and I had to go to work at like 1 o'clock. I worked at a tobacco store, ironically enough. And I was doing stuff around the house, and all of a sudden my energy level went like I had not had enough nicotine in my system, and my body was like, bro, we're shut. I had to sit down. It exhausted me so bad. And I'm like, damn, this is day 2. I knew I had to go to work. I just picked up the can and went, yep, not now. And stuck another chaw in my mouth and went. And then I was like, whoo, we're good. And yeah, that's my story of trying to quit cold turkey. Apparently, I don't have the willpower to do it. And one other quick story, too. When I smoked cigarettes, I went to the doctor because, again, me being dumb back then, a coworker said he went on Wellbutrin, and it made him so like not worried about anything that he's like, I had no problem. So I go to the doctor and I ask the doctor about it. He's like, oh yeah, I got like a big sample bottle. I'll bring to you. Just take them home. That lasted 2 days. It did not calm me down. It put my anger on a hair trigger. I was at work throwing things down the aisle because I was so angry, and people were like, "What's going on with John?" Because generally I'm like, like happy-go-lucky and joking around with people. I came home one day from work, and my daughter, who was maybe 2 years old, asked me what was for supper, and it took everything in my power not to literally slap her as hard as I could. That's how angry I was. Like I was going to rear back and slap her, and I stopped myself. I grabbed the pills. I went to the trash can and I threw them in the trash. And my wife's like, "You all right?" And I go, "I can't take that stuff." Instead of mellowing me out, it made me super like high strung, and every stupid thing that any other day of the week would have not even got me anywhere close to being irritated. It had me on a tipping point of throwing punches and everything else. And I was like, I guess I'm not quitting smoking either. Because holy smokes, I almost dented my kid's forehead with a high hard slap because simply because I took a psychotropic drug to help me quit smoking. And yeah, crazy stuff. Anyway, 2 stories that have really nothing to do with what we're talking about, but hey, here we go.
Well, it does. It leads right back into exactly how hard quitting is. And raising the price of nicotine by $1 is not going to force a bunch of people hooked on nicotine to quit. It's the dumbest theory. Like, again, all you're going to do is there's people in the chats who still smoke. I wouldn't say, I don't remember where I heard this from. This is a joke, but it was, I'm not addicted to this vape bar. I just need to hit it once every 10 minutes or I go insane. So yeah, no, it's not going to make anybody quit. No, if I every once in a while, I'm like, I'm going to quit cold turkey. And I usually make it about 4 hours. Sometimes I'll go a whole day, but it's usually about 4 hours is my limit, and something drives me over the edge and I need a hit. And if I went to the store and every vape was $1 more, I'm going to go, that sucks. Here's my 18 instead of $17 this week. Like it was never going to stop me. All it's going to do is give more money to the state, which is more power to the state. And I'm just going to blow through these really quick because we're not running low on time, but we're getting close to the end. Mm-hmm. So one of these articles is how the state of the same division, the Division of Cannabis Regulation, revokes the manufacturing license of CNC Manufacturing LLC in Springfield. The violations leading to the takeaway of the license, which is not just the owners of the businesses' jobs, but it's everyone that they employ. So they failed to comply with state and federal requirements by transporting Missouri marijuana outside of Missouri, selling marijuana product in Missouri that did not originate from Missouri marijuana, failing to appropriately track and trace marijuana products, manufacturing marijuana product containing intoxicating cannabinoids produced through chemical modification, which that sounds worse than it is. There's the improper destruction of marijuana products, including a failure to reflect destruction in applicable records, and failing to preserve records in marijuana products as directed by DCR's prior directives. So with the manufacturing marijuana product containing intoxicating cannabinoids produced through chemical modification, basically what they do is they just distill it down now, and they use like a freeze dry technique to make like the concentrates that a lot of people use nowadays. Same exact effect in almost every single case. You puff it, you feel different. And so it's not like a big crazy new, like it isn't like some major damning, like it wasn't like they were making marijuana into meth. They were just making it slightly more concentrated so you wouldn't have to do as much at one time. And it's like a higher proof alcohol versus, it's like beer versus liquor. It's the same thing. It's just a higher concentration of it. And so it's basically they didn't want to cowtail to every single directive of the state of Missouri. They brought in product not from Missouri to make products, and they shipped marijuana products out of the state. It's basically what I'm reading as the main charges. And then it sounds to me like some of the employees may have been getting high on their own supply, and that the failure to properly dispose of. That's just like the first place my brain went. And so again, this is just another article of the same department just flexing their authority, shutting people down. Again, I guarantee that every single one of their crimes, that every single one of their violations were victimless. Guaranteed. There's no, I mean, unless they actually were poisoning somebody, that would be that's the only thing you could possibly do. And I guarantee having a regulator come in every now and then and do this or that is not going to stop. If someone had something nefarious or if they were doing a bad business practice, these regulations are not going to stop them. You're just going to have somebody who's better at, forging the documents to make it look like you're in compliance.
Yeah. Again, I don't know why they're so hell bent on making sure that Missouri marijuana stays in Missouri, and you also can't transport it out of Missouri. I don't know what their thinking is behind that, but I guess they can't track it as well.
Well,
I'm not sure.
That's a violation of a federal crime, but it's the state of Missouri going after them. It's not the ATF or the DEA. It's the state of Missouri who has legalized the product. And if they were going to Illinois or it might just be Illinois, but if you were transporting it from Missouri to Illinois, that's a legalized state to another legalized state. They're only violating federal law, but you're using the state agency to enforce the federal law.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't make this stuff up, folks. You can't. And then you want to read this other one too? Yeah, let's get into this one as well.
The head of Missouri's cannabis testing unit said the new unannounced visits to collect samples shouldn't impact business. Oh, it's that same podcast. I guess they do a podcast where they announce all their stuff. Kind of lame, but
very lame.
Podcasters, what a lame. Who podcasts anymore?
Who does that?
This is going to be another arm of compliance, guys, said Ryan Bernard, the division's testing and research unit manager. So keep this business as usual 100% of the time. Blah, blah, blah. The supply chain will remain intact. You'll be able to move material freely in and out, and you should do so. This team's looking to sample 4 to 7 grams of finished marijuana product. If the package has more than 4 to 7 grams, then they'll take the whole package. 1 tag per facility, meaning we're not looking to take 10 tags from a single facility. So they'll come by, grab one product, test it, and be out of your hair. But if you think about how many dispensaries there are, you're going to need teams and teams of people to do this. You're going to have to pay them tens of thousands of dollars a year to do it. And that's just going to test one product. That's what it sounds like, 1 tag per.
Yeah.
Per
facility. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's just another, again, I've been saying this since the beginning of when we started reading these articles today. This is all just to prop up this Missouri cannabis division. Obviously, they're never going to want to loosen regulations or make things easier for people. They're always going to be the ones that want to crack down because that gives them more power, gives them more money to do what they want. And then, maybe if that division's big enough, they'll be able to rent out a big hotel convention suite in Springfield and spend a bunch of money on buffet food and spending time in pools and hotels and stuff.
Yeah. I said it's they say if the product fails at the reference lab, has said his team will return to the facility to collect a full representative sample. If that product fails at that point, we're going to initiate an investigation. If the material is no longer available at the originating facility, at that point, we may sample from dispensaries. Like most states, all testing in Missouri cannabis products occurs at private labs that have been licensed by the state. And I'm sure there's no funny business there. Um, Lawmakers began allocating this money for this kind of sampling to be tested at the state laboratory in the fiscal year that began on July 1st, 2024 with 3.8 million. Most of it went unspent because the cannabis testing methods were still in the process of being implemented, according to state budget documents. Another 2.4 million was allocated for the current fiscal year, and it's unclear how much of it has been spent. Yeah, I
Well, that's a silver lining to me then. I'll say if they had the money and didn't spend it, usually, like there's an episode of The Office where one of the accountants goes to
oh
Michael
yeah,
Scott, the
Oscar,
manager.
yeah.
Oscar goes to Michael and he says, "We got to spend this money by the end of the day or they're not going to give it to us next year." So he's like going out trying to spend it real quick. So I'm shocked that they didn't spend as much money as they had to. I mean, I guess it'd be pretty easy to spot if you weren't going around and testing products, but you were spending the money like you were. I mean, that seems pretty easy to find fraud there. So maybe that's why they didn't do it, is because it would have been too obvious. Because any other agency, and they would have just spent the money. They would have found a way to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's what agencies do. And I'm sure that budget will balloon as time passes on. They'll be like, well, we need to sample more products. So we're going to need a bigger budget, or yeah, it'll be a whole lot of excuse making. And I don't know, this whole thing. I used to say on my very first podcast, I want legalization without regulation. And I know some people are like, wait a minute. I'm like, listen, people who sell marijuana on the street in the so-called black market generally don't want to supply you with marijuana that's going to kill you or make you sick. I will say this, okay? As a former pothead many years ago, and I'm not saying I want to, but if I ever decided that I wanted to take another toke, there's no freaking way. This stuff's gotten way more potent than anything I used to smoke back in the day. I'm going to be in the fetal position crying for my mother if I smoke this stuff nowadays. It is way more potent than it ever used to think about being. It's crazy. The amount of science that's the crazy thing. You know, you start getting medical and recreational legalized, and like then all this science starts happening. Like we need the most potent stuff you can get, people get their hands on. So when they smoke it, like they're afraid to go outside and they forget what their name is. And I don't it's freaking insane. I'm not Hey, you want to smoke it? I'm not saying you're a bad person for doing so. I'm just saying if I ever decided to try it again, I couldn't, because I would be afraid that I would be like goonied out of my mind. That's another thing. As I'm gotten older, after both my shoulder surgeries, my wife would fight me tooth and nail to take the hydrocodone that they gave me, because it made it feel like my body was on this end of the couch and my head was on this end of the couch. Like I didn't have control of my system. And I don't like that feeling anymore. So if I get super baked and I can't think anymore, I don't like that. Back 20 something years ago, like, hey, who cares? Now I wouldn't want that. I would want like a body high, a relaxing high without like, sometimes you get paranoid if you get super baked or whatever. Like, oh, it's everything, as the cops getting ready to knock on the door type of thing. I don't want that. I just want a body high, a relaxation, and maybe just a very slight mind high. That's it. But if I did this stuff that's out now, holy crap, I'm not gonna call for like medical services, but I'm not gonna be enjoying myself more than likely. So I do know now though that they make gummies that are only like 2 milligrams. So maybe I could eat one of them and get a slight buzz and be okay. But then I have to worry about what if I go to work and they randomly drug test me for some reason and now I'm pop dirty and I lose my job. Shade J's got a funny comment here. That's what it has always done to me. I would get paranoid, then puke. Guess I'm allergic or something.
Maybe.
Oh, dude, I had
Oh,
friends. I had two buddies. If it was what they called kind weed, I would go out and buy weed. If it was kind weed, and they like come over and hang out, and we'd smoke, and like we'd play spades or something, just hang out, watch movies. If it was kind weed, within 20 minutes, ralphing their brains out. After that, they
that's
were good.
crazy.
Yeah, if it's just
Maybe
that one,
dehydration or something. I don't know because
but
I
they
know
could
people
smoke,
used to get sick when they'd get dehydrated on it.
but you could smoke a different strain, they'd be fine.
Oh, it's
But
that one kind that would just
if
make
it
them
was
sick.
one,
And
they literally called it kind weed.
was it just actually just mushrooms that they told you was weed? Because
No, because
that
I
sounds like
I
me. I
never
don't
had
know.
any problems. But yeah, if it was a different strain, he could hit it, be high, we'd laugh, have a good time, no problem. If it was kind, he's like, "Oh, that was kind weed," and I go, first time he is like, "That's kind weed," and I go, "Yeah." So and he goes, "Kind weed makes me throw up," and I go, "Really?" He's like, "Yep, I'll see you in a minute." And he come back, and he's like, "I'm good now," because I was kind of
Wow.
concerned. I'm like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. It's just kind weed makes me puke," and I'm like, "Yeah." Like back then, you didn't go around and people were like, "This is this kind," and you went, you found somebody who had good weed, you buy from him, you went home, you smoked it, you enjoyed yourself until it ran out, and then rinse repeat. But now it's like, well, it used to be you could go and be like, "This is indica and this is sativa." And then they made a rule you couldn't do that anymore. You couldn't label what type of strain it was. Everything says hybrid now, but it doesn't say indica dominant or sativa dominant because they're like the pot people don't even, well, that it isn't, it's supposed to be going into place. Oh, yours says it. Oh,
Yeah, a lot of products nowadays will say indica hybrid or sativa hybrid.
yeah,
If
they just
if it's
can't.
not like a good blend, I guess.
Yeah, they can't just put. Oh, my understanding, they cannot put just indica on there anymore.
Oh, I've seen it.
Because it was misleading to people. I'm like, if the person behind the counter knows their stuff, I couldn't keep track of it for a while either. Like, I would ask people just like their opinion on stuff, right? And one guy's like, think of it this way. He's like, when you think of indica, think of into couch because you're just going to be planted into couch because you're too baked to move. Sativa is going to, elevate you. You're going to get some energy. I'm like, oh, cool. I still don't want to try it because I'm afraid I'm just going to get too baked and I won't be able to operate normally. And that's
I got
horrifying.
one thing to note on this.
Yeah.
It does bug me the amount of right wing influencers who are against marijuana in 2025. Like, and I'm not saying that they're not against. This is not a whataboutism. Like, well, they're not. No, it's like Charlie Kirk,
Oh,
Matt
yeah.
Walsh, Mike Cernovich. They're like, marijuana is destroying our societies. Look at all the cities that have legalized marijuana. They're all going nuts. And it's all of the facts of what they're saying is just completely not true. There's no like there is no evidence to support that people are more violent, that people, I mean, you might have I don't even know if there's an exact causation to, or if it might just be even correlation, but I think like the state of Colorado, after they legalized it, had like a slight rise in car accidents, but I don't even know if the fatalities went up. So it might have, again, it might have just have been a stat versus like something caused by everybody smoking marijuana. But like the outrage from young conservative influencers that are just like against marijuana is just so crazy. Like, again, I'm not trying to be like, well, there's so many other things to go after, because they do. I mean, those conservative influencers will talk about anything nowadays, except Epstein, of course. But but they're just their fixation on it sometimes, and how they actually believe that it's one of like it's not the socialist policies, it's the marijuana that makes them that's destroying these cities. And that's just, so, I mean, these cities have been destroyed long before, like New York, Chicago, LA, long before they legal. I don't even know how legalized it is in New York right now anyway. Up until 2020, it was not recreationally legal, and New York City was a dumpster fire in 2020. And so it's not the weed, it's the people and the policies.
I think I think Ethan Thampy was on a show and he brought that up, the car accident thing, right? He was saying that what they were kind of not alluding to as far as the stats is that the amount of people that moved to Colorado because of the recreational marijuana thing, and then maybe there's a parallel with uh the amount of people, the influx of people, and the increase in car accidents. There could have been correlation there.
Oh,
Not that
because
the
of a
weed was
population
causing,
rise
yes, but a
led to a higher
population
number of
spike.
accidents.
Yes, and that correlates with more accidents because you got an influx. Because back in 2000, 1999, 2000, Denver was one of the three fastest growing cities in America, and it's still growing. And now you add like recreational marijuana and all that stuff, you're going to draw people from neighboring states because, like, I want my, legal weed, and it brings more people in, and then there's a rise in car accidents. How do we know that's not a correlation there? One last thing here, Shady J has brought something funny. He said, I drove once on it a long time ago, and it made me drive super slow, and I thought it was going speed limit.
We've all
Many,
been
many,
there.
many, many years ago, a high school friend showed up at my apartment after work one day, and my regiment. Well, I get home from work, I take a shower, I'd sit down on the couch, I had my dugout, I'd smoke a little weed, and kick back. So he showed up. We're shooting the breeze. I didn't even offer it, because I didn't do that to people. If I figure if they wanted some, they'd ask. I didn't try to push it to people. But he's like, "Hey, could I get a hit of that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool." So I handed it to him. He finished it up. He hung around for a little while. He went home. Now I lived in Rosebud, and he lived in Owensville, so it's like 4 or 5 minute drive max. He come back over like a day or two later. I was going through my routine, and I looked at him at this time, and I was like, "You want some more?" And he's like, "No." I go, "What's the matter?" He goes, "Dude, I couldn't get over 25, 30 miles an hour all the way home." And he goes, "The speed limit's 55." He goes, "I couldn't get above 30." He goes, "I was so paranoid. I was driving so slow, afraid that I was going to speed and get pulled over, that I drove way slower." Dude, I died laughing. I was like, "I'm sorry." He's like, "No, I'm the one that asked for it, but I'm not going to do that anymore." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." Unless you, yeah, I was like, "Well, you can do it and then hang out here until it subsides." He's like, "Well, I got other stuff to do. I just want to come hang out for a little while." I'm like, "Okay, cool." But yeah, he couldn't get over 25, 30 miles an hour, which is hilarious.
Uh, a friend of mine got pulled over on Highway 70, where the
Oh,
speed limit was 60, doing 45. And he thought for sure he was going to get, like, he actually, the cop thought he was drunk. So he pulls him out and does a sobriety test, and he passes. So the cop actually let him off and didn't arrest him with, like, didn't accuse him of driving high or anything, just thought that he was drunk with how slow he was driving on the highway. And I don't know how he talked his way out of that. I guess because of the legal limit, like the minimum limit on the highway is 45. So like you can technically do that, but it's super suspicious. Really quick before we go, I have a question for you real quick.
sure.
What do you think is going to happen first? Someone's going to get arrested from the Epstein list, or someone's going to be arrested for Crossfire Hurricane? Or do you think neither will end, like the more likely option of neither will get arrested from either one?
I don't think anybody's going to get any punishment out of either one of those scenarios. I don't think anybody's going to see, because there should be a whole lot of prison sentences for a whole lot of people in both topics, but I don't think either side's going to. I don't think anybody's going to take a hit.
So I guess that a follow up to that is: would you suspect, like a lot of people, that them announcing this Crossfire Hurricane stuff is a distraction from Epstein and nothing more?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's a way to get people
neither.
focused on something else. Don't get me wrong. There should be an investigation of what happened. After 3 years of hearing how Russia and Trump colluded to win the election, and all the lies that they perpetrated, the media and government, the Department of Justice, senators, congressmen, all those, there should be a whole lot of people who should have to answer for what they did. Same as the Epstein thing.
Yeah,
Whole lot of people to answer. And guess what? They're just doing this to blow smoke and get people to try to forget about the Epstein thing. And then they'll have their little Senate hearings or whatever, and then no one's going to face any jail time or anything of substance for what they did, and we're all going to take the hit because we're going to let a bunch of pedophiles and traitors and treasonous people run amok, and we'll just keep losing liberty, and they'll keep devaluing our dollar and keep figuring out more brown people to blow up, and it'll just be business as usual. All right, folks. With that being said, that's going to do it for this edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Thanks to those of you YouTube, Rumble, Facebook for watching, and those of you on the podcasting side and molibertyradio.us. We thank all of you for your continued viewership and listenership, and we'll see you next week right here at 6:30 Tuesday night for another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report.